Following treatment for COVID-19, the Democrats have unveiled a bill that will create a panel to gauge the president's capacity under the 25th Amendment, which grants them this power. The idea being that they could judge a president to be unfit and then remove said president. Many people started speculating the plan is to get rid of Donald Trump. Why? Because they've been arguing that the medication dexamethasone has made Donald Trump incapable of doing his job. And they've argued that he's actually dying. He's unhealthy. Believe it or not, the New York Times actually published that Donald Trump was secretly using a green screen because he was too unhealthy to stand outside. That has been thoroughly debunked. And now I think I can debunk the idea that this is a plan to get rid of Donald Trump. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I talked about this the other day, but I have some clarification, correction, editorial note, whatever you want to call it. The Democrats are not trying to get rid of Donald Trump. How do I know this? Well, for one, Nancy Pelosi said it herself. This is not about Donald Trump. And I think it is fair to say maybe there should be a panel, that actually does this. But I do believe this creates a very dangerous precedent for this country in that crony establishment elites can then sit on this panel and say, well, I believe that president is unfit. But let me tell you the real reason. The real reasons I know that this is not about Donald Trump. The 25th Amendment grants Congress the power to create this commission, but it requires the vice president to be involved. And there is no way Mike Pence is going to come out and say Donald Trump is unfit. Unless, of course, Congress and Pence were colluding to make Pence the president, or at least acting president. No. I think based on the title of this video and the thumbnail, you've already figured it out. I mean, I told you outright. This is to get rid of Joe Biden. Now, there's reason to believe that Donald Trump will lose. And do they really think Joe Biden will be president? I mean, most people are kind of already joking. No, Kamala Harris is going to be the actual president, and she will be the most powerful vice president in American history. It stands to reason then the real plan is either to get rid of Joe Biden when he wins, because as Joe Rogan put it, voting for Biden would be like taking a flashlight with dying batteries out for a long hike. It's not going to work out. So as most people become scared that Joe Biden doesn't have the mental ability to actually do the job, well, this may actually reassure them, which is the other point to this. Maybe they want to get rid of Joe Biden should he actually win, and then make Kamala Harris the actual president, and then have her appoint a vice president, and Joe Biden just sits in his chair in the sun, like I've said before. Or maybe it's an attempt to convince the American public that don't worry, if you vote for Joe Biden and he eventually can't do the job, we will have a commission come in because Kamala Harris will be VP and she can invoke the 25th. There it is. Mike Pence will not invoke the 25th against Trump. Kamala Harris would invoke the 25th against Joe Biden. Thus, in my opinion, based on Nancy Pelosi saying it's not about Trump, the only thing I see here is that it's probably about removing Joe Biden. So let's take a look at exactly what Nancy Pelosi is saying, why I believe this will be removing Joe Biden should he win, and why I'm going to say it. There's good reason to believe that Joe Biden actually could win. Even Ted Cruz is saying it. There could be a very, very bad moment for the Republicans coming up unless people get active and go and vote in person. But maybe Donald Trump will win, and maybe this is just a cautionary move. Let's read the story and see what's going on. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you would like to support my work, there are many ways you can give. And there's a P.O. box if you'd like to send me stuff. But the best thing you can do is share this video. If you think my thoughts and my rationale on this make sense, then you can help let people know what their plan is, or at least what we think their plan might be, by sharing this video. It also helps my channel grow. But more importantly, as we are about 25 or so days from the election, I think it's very important that, in my personal opinion, and, to support my own channel, we promote independent voices outside of the mainstream media. You can do that by sharing this video. But don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and let's read the story from The Hill. Democrats unveil bill creating panel to gauge president's capacity. House Democrats on Friday unveiled legislation creating a panel to gauge a president's capacity to perform the job and potentially remove the commander-in-chief from office in cases of decided debility. The commission would be permanent, applying to future administrations. But it's a clear shot at President Trump, whose treatments for the coronavirus have raised questions about their effects on his mental acuity. Now, to be fair, maybe that really is the case. Another half-baked, feeble attempt at removing the president. Russiagate bore no fruit. Ukrainegate bore no fruit. Impeachment failed. They can't get rid of this guy. So maybe they're just trying to jam him up now to stop the Amy Coney Barrett hearings and confirmation. Or maybe I think it's not about Trump. Nancy Pelosi said so, right? Why shouldn't I take her word for it? Ha ha ha. Well, maybe it really is about the fact that if Joe Biden wins, nobody thinks he's going to function. He's just not Trump. So they're going to vote for not Trump, and then they need to do something about this. Let's read more. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a sharp critic of the president, has fueled those questions in the days since Trump returned to the White House after 3 nights in the hospital, floating the idea that Trump's drug regimen, which includes a steroid linked to mood swings, might be affecting his decision-making. The president is, shall we say, in an altered state right now, the speaker told Bloomberg News on Thursday. The Democrats' legislation invokes the 25th Amendment, which empowers Congress to create a body which, working with the vice president, can remove a president deemed unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Sponsored by Rep. Jamie Raskin of Maryland, a former professor of constitutional law, the bill would create a 17-member panel charged with judging the president's fitness and empowered to remove that figure when deficiencies are determined. In such a case, the vice president would take over. Quote, "This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters," Pelosi told reporters Friday. "But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents." I think that's actually a fair assessment. It's too late to actually try and stop Trump. If Trump wins, however, in a second term, they may try invoking this. But let's be real. Mike Pence is not going to betray Donald Trump. That's absurd. The proposal has no chance of being enacted. With Congress on recess and the Senate and White House currently controlled by Republicans, indeed, GOP leaders have already dismissed it as a political stunt. Look, that's absurd, absolutely absurd, said Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Again, right here in the last 3 weeks before the election, I think those kinds of wild comments should be largely discounted. But the bill marks another effort by Democratic leaders to energize their base ahead of the November 3rd elections. While feeding accusations that Trump, already under fire for his fitful response to the coronavirus pandemic, has become increasingly erratic under treatment for his own case of COVID-19. Pelosi on Thursday had previewed the legislation unveiling. The speaker was vague about what prompted her decision to do it now, just 25 days before the election, but hinted it was related to the White House's refusal to reveal when Trump last tested negative for the virus. Why is the White House not telling the country that important fact about how this spread and made a hotspot for the White House, she asked. Trump was quick to fire back, proposing that it's Pelosi, not him, who should be examined for fitness of office. Crazy Nancy is the one who should be under observation, he tweeted. They don't call her crazy for nothing. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany piled on Friday morning, telling Fox and Friends that Pelosi's gambit is absurd. The only one who needs to be looking at the 25th Amendment is Nancy Pelosi herself. Even before its release, the legislation was already stoking accusations from the president's Republican allies that Democrats, frustrated with Trump's victory in 2016, are doing everything in their power to overturn the wishes of voters in that election, a charge frequently lodged during Trump's impeachment. "I wouldn't put it past Speaker Pelosi to stage a coup," Rep. Mark Green tweeted Thursday. "She has already weaponized impeachment. What's to keep her from weaponizing the 25th Amendment?" Well, I think there's actually very, very dangerous implications to what Nancy Pelosi is saying. I think it's fair to say maybe there should be a panel, because what do we do when our president is out of his mind? And if Biden does win, and I think you got to be concerned about Biden being out of his mind. But first, I want to show you this in the 25th Amendment. Section 4, declaration by vice president and principal officers. Section 4 addresses the case of an incapacitated president who is unable or unwilling to execute the voluntary declaration contemplated in Section 3. Basically, if the president is incapacitated and can't speak, the vice president can say, yo, this guy's knocked out and can't do his job. Do you agree with me? If the president is then able to say, no, I can do my job, then it goes back to the vice president and Congress or their approved body to make another declaration. This is basically saying if the president bumps his head and can't talk, they make a declaration. If the president's bumped noggin still prevents him from speaking, then they finalize a declaration. The vice president takes over. The reason why I do not believe this is about Donald Trump is because Mike Pence will not betray Trump. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, as vice president, should Biden win, will easily then say, I believe Biden is incapable. Biden, we appreciate your service. Moving on. I'm not saying this is their betrayal of Joe Biden. It may simply be that they see Joe Biden's cognitive decline, which everyone seems to have noticed, and are preparing a contingency for when Joe Biden cannot verbally express he is unable to do his job. Get it? Joe Biden's gaffed, and he struggles to speak very often. It's only a matter of time, in my opinion, and I mean that with all due respect. If Joe Biden wins and Kamala Harris is VP and Joe Biden can't speak anymore, they need a way to address this. Now, of course, Congress could just do it, but it could be a fear that Congress fails and becomes, that Democrats fail and Congress becomes Republican, and then Republicans say, nope, he's your president, you live with them, hoping that a disastrous presidency of Joe Biden results in an easy Republican victory. In a tweet from The Hill, Speaker Pelosi says this is not about President Trump. The 25th Amendment creates a path preserving stability if a president suffers a crippling physical or mental problem. She highlights only this portion of such other body as Congress may by law provide. What she is highlighting, that Congress has the ability to create this panel. She's not highlighting the vice president portion because I think then people might realize the only vice president as of now who would probably say something about the president is Kamala Harris, which brings me to a great and glorious tweet from Michael Malice, who tweeted on July 31st. If you're not familiar with Michael Malice, you should definitely check him out because he's very smart. He's very hilarious. He hosts a podcast, and he was on the IRL podcast recently, but he tweeted, the writers of the simulation are building up to Republicans fighting hard to stop the Democrats from removing President Biden from office via the 25th Amendment, July 31st, 2020 at 10:25 a.m. Michael, you have called it. Bravo, good sir. Now, of course, he's kidding about the whole simulation thing. I'm assuming, or maybe he's half kidding, or I don't know, maybe Michael really believes in the simulation theory. The point is, this year has been so insane and patently absurd. I think he's right. I think we might actually see a Biden victory, and then the Republicans who maintain the Senate or whatever start fighting over, no, you do not remove Joe Biden. And I don't know what Joe Biden's going to be saying about this, but I think it's actually quite hilarious. Now, don't take my word for it. Take Etsy's word for it. Over at Etsy.com, we can see this Kamala Harris sign. It says Harris 2020, and the I, the letter I in the word Harris, is a tiny little Biden. Kamala Harris was supposed to be President Yard Sign 2020, a bestseller. This is what they are buying. The Democrats who support Harris made it a bestseller. Now, I'm not saying every single Democrat did this. I'm saying that, in fact, they actually believe it. Or even if it's a joke, it's something they believe to be true. Okay? Well, I'll tell you something that I think is actually pretty scary. For one, it may be that the Republicans lose. GOP could face bloodbath of Watergate proportions on Election Day. And that's Ted Cruz. But I want to point out the scarier notion here. What if Kamala Harris steps up and says, after Biden wins, he is unfit for office, and this panel agrees. Joe, you've served the country well, but we're sorry, we're just not fit. Maybe it won't happen right away. Maybe it'll take 6 months. What happens then? What happens then is that Kamala Harris appoints a VP. She chooses somebody should Joe Biden be removed. If she chooses then a vice president, you could end up with, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, somebody that nobody likes and nobody would have voted for. How can you get Hillary Clinton to be president? If she was on the VP ticket for Biden, people would not vote for Biden because they don't like Hillary. They really dislike her. What happens if we get, and I'm throwing this out there. I know it's probably never going to happen. I'm just saying, if they create this panel and then Kamala Harris steps up and says, Joe Biden is unable to do the job. And then the panel says, hear, hear. So then Kamala Harris appoints Hillary Clinton. And as VP said, Hillary Clinton says, Kamala Harris is clearly not capable of doing this job. And the panel says, hear, hear. And then Kamala Harris steps down and Hillary Clinton becomes president. I do not believe that will happen. That is insane to think. I'm just saying it creates the system in which something like that is possible. I do not like holes being put in our system. Okay? You see the point I'm trying to make? In which case, I think it's important to make sure that whatever it is that's happening is sound. But the real issue at hand, I think, is like It's not so much about the panel, because this seems to be more of red meat to the Democrat base. They don't even need the panel. Congress can just do it. I suppose if Congress flips Republican, they're worried about what Republicans will do. In which case, maybe it does make sense that there's an independent panel that gets people are appointed to it by Congress. And maybe it'll be a lifetime appointment or a certain term. I don't know how they're actually planning on doing it. But that might make more sense, because then you prevent partisan games in declaring a president unfit. The problem, however, is that it creates a system in which establishment politicians can always maintain control. And perhaps what we're really seeing is the establishment saying, never again will we allow Donald Trump or anyone like him to be president. Because they'll just pump out stories in the media over and over and over again. The president is unfit, the president is unwell, and the president must be removed. And that doesn't matter who wins. Maybe it's Bernie. Trump called him crazy Bernie, right? Well, if it turns out that that Cruz is correct, the GOP could face a bloodbath of Watergate proportions, then maybe we are actually looking at a Kamala Harris taking over. I mean, does anybody really believe Biden's going to be the president? We've been saying it for months now. But here's the crazy part. Kamala Harris failed in the primaries. She had almost no support. She fizzled out. I don't think she got even any delegates. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, got more than her with one. I could be wrong about the numbers, but something like that. Joe Biden picks Kamala. Kamala then becomes president, and no one voted for her. I mean, I guess they voted for her as VP, but even that to me is unsettling, because there are other people who should be president well before Kamala should. She's picked by Biden. Biden wins because everyone hates Trump. Kamala, who everyone hates as well, then becomes president. Welcome to your broken states of America, because that would be a truly messed up election. But I will be fair and point out some interesting things. For one, from Gallup, confidence and accuracy of U.S. election matches record low. People are not confident the election is going to play out well. In which case, maybe it doesn't matter what Nancy Pelosi is doing. Maybe she's just trying to convince her base that, don't worry, if Trump wins, we've got an ace up our sleeves. Maybe it's actually about removing Joe Biden. That's just my opinion. I think it makes more sense. Or maybe she's just saying, look, I'm doing something, so that she can rile up her base so that they think it's worth voting. Confidence in the accuracy of the U.S. elections from 2004 to 2020 shows it is at a low point from where it was around 2009. And that was probably because of, surprisingly, I guess it's Obama. That's weird. It wasn't an election year in that case, but next year was. But it did go up. In 2016, it went way up. You want to know why confidence in the elections actually went up in 2016? People like me who thought the election was rigged the whole time saw Trump won. And then we were like, wow, if Trump can win, man, the election must be legit. Though they definitely tried cheating. But something I find truly interesting is this. American voters' views on Donald Trump and Joe Biden agree that he has the presidential qualities. Joe Biden, according to Gallup, is 5 points above Trump. 49% saying he has presidential qualities. Trump has 44%. What does that mean? What are presidential qualities? I guess respecting decorum and being polite, in which case Mike Pence definitely has presidential qualities, and Donald Trump is a bit brash. But I think they're talking about behavior and demeanor, which to me is kind of dumb because, we've had presidents who are really crazy in the past. Agree with him on issues is where things get interesting. Donald Trump beats Joe Biden 49% to 46%. 49% of people agree with Trump versus 46% agreeing with Joe Biden. Now, what does that really mean? I don't know, but I can show you this. Most say they are better off now than 4 years ago. During his presidential campaign in 1980, Ronald Reagan asked Americans, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Since then, this question has served as a key standard that sitting presidents running for re-election have been held to. Gallup's most recent survey found a clear majority of registered voters, 56%, saying they are better off now than they were 4 years ago, while 32% said they are worse off. I'm showing you these things as a counter to the idea that it really is about Kamala Harris. There are reasons to believe Donald Trump will win. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that he'll lose. I really can't tell you. Some people have said it certainly won't be a landslide. In fact, Trump may still lose the popular vote and by massive margins. It may be that Michigan and Pennsylvania have some weird discrepancies, and then, in the end, nobody wins. We have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe it goes to the Supreme Court and Trump wins by Supreme Court ruling, in which case you'll probably get a lot of civil unrest. But people agree with Trump on issues. They just don't think he's presidential. So what does that mean for the voters? It could mean they won't vote for him because they'd prefer a bad president, someone who's got bad issues, but it still looks better. I mean, that's why they voted for Barack Obama, because he looked good. That's really what it's all about, at least a lot of it. However, if people recognize that they've been better off now than 4 years ago, even amid the pandemic, that's crazy. Look at this, 56% saying they're better off now. Maybe those people are going to vote for Donald Trump, and it doesn't matter what the polls say. Maybe the polls show that people don't like Donald Trump. They'll still end up voting for him because, the money's good, I guess. Well, there are many things happening that suggest it won't be the case. Twitter is slowing down retweets ahead of the U.S. election. Social media company to make sweeping changes to how posts are shared, including making it harder for certain content to go viral. We know the mainstream media is against Trump. We know they're biased against him. We saw the story. Maybe you caught my 1 p.m. segment on youtube.com/TimCastNews, my other channel, where the moderator for the next debate was caught accidentally. This individual tweeted to Anthony Scaramucci, one of the most ardent Trump critics in the country, "Should I respond to Trump?" Many people assumed he was trying to send a direct message. This one tweet was the only one out of place. C-SPAN then came out saying, "Oh, no, he was hacked. He was hacked." Nobody buys that. That's insane. The media is clearly in the bag for the Democrats. I mean, Washington Post has endorsed Joe Biden straight up. And these news outlets tend to endorse the Democrats. So yeah, they're in the bag for the Democrats. What does that mean? If social media is going to throttle all posts, it's mostly going to negatively impact Republicans and Donald Trump. It's going to favor Democrats because Democrats can always default to mainstream media to maintain the narrative, as it were. In which case, Trump is facing a very serious disadvantage. And I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they are planning for Joe Biden to win and for there to be some really sick and twisted games being played. To me, I'm not a fan of any of it. Okay, maybe Nancy Pelosi is really trying to get rid of Donald Trump. Maybe the 25th Amendment is being invoked and they're creating this panel because they're going to come after Trump should he win again. To be fair, that is actually a maybe bigger point. I think they're betting on winning for sure. So maybe it's really about Joe Biden. But let's say Donald Trump really does win because he's got some things in his corner. Maybe what Pelosi is saying is right now, no, it's not about Trump. We're not trying to get rid of Trump and nothing like that. Maybe she's doing this right now because the Democrats know they're going to lose the House. And this is their only opportunity to get their cronies in before they lose power. Or at the very least, it's their best. It's a safety net. I'll put it this way. Right now, they control the House. They can create this panel and they can stack it full of anti-Trump activists under the guise of, but they're just past presidents and scholars. What happens if they wait and they lose the House? Then they won't be able to create the panel or stack it full of their cronies and their allies. I think Nancy Pelosi is preparing for the fact that she might actually lose. The Democrats might lose everything. And so she's creating a new panel to empower them in the event they lose. Wouldn't that be something? I think either way, it works out in their favor. Will they actually get rid of Joe Biden? Yeah, I think they might. And I think they may be trying to reassure their base. It may seem a little bit out there, but it's just, I would lean towards, I think that's the case. Because if the issue was get rid of Trump or get rid of Biden, Mike Pence is not coming out against Donald Trump. I'm sorry, it's pointless. But Kamala Harris. So maybe this is what they think is going to happen. Maybe they think they'll lose the House, lose the Senate, but win the presidency. I don't know about that, but maybe. Why? Some have speculated that people will vote for Joe Biden to get rid of Trump, but vote Republican down ticket as a check on Joe Biden, in which case she will create a panel that will empower her faction long after they lose the election. An idea like that to me is disconcerting to say the least. But you know what? Let's throw all the speculation aside. I have no idea what's going to happen. You don't. Nobody does. Maybe she's just doing this because she's bored. Whatever. I'll tell you this. The fact that she's doing it at all, I find to be kind of scary because it will create a crony establishment panel that will give the establishment power, even if they're not elected. Creating an unelected panel that could remove the president, to me, that's worrying. However, the election is about 25 days away, so it's better that we just all go out and vote and make sure that isn't the case, whatever it may be. I hope you have taken your vote seriously, and you go and vote in person. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.